in, guys, to another episode of the TBT podcast. Tyler, Thickman, Tyler, Jason Dunn. Good to have you back on the podcast. Will Shields, welcome into the podcast. Welcome in, everyone, to another great episode of the TPT podcast. We got a good one for you today. We got a special guest with us today, someone that is big on the TikTok community, likes talking Vikings. He's on a couple of Vikings podcasts. Then, of course, we got my man, Zach, always with us here today. But first of all, Drew, how you doing? Welcome into the show.
Yeah, we're doing good. Like I said, I'm a big, Vikings fan in case you are new to me. So definitely very excited coming off yesterday's win with that fourth quarter performance. Definitely a one for one of the better Monday Night Football games we've seen in a while. So definitely coming off a high for my sake at least. So
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely going to get into that. Well, of course, get into the Kansas City Chiefs. What took, what transpired really on that Friday game in Brazil. Of course, to do that with me, as always, is Zach. Zach, what's happening?
I'm good, man. The weekend was kind of sour. At least OU came through for us and got
Yes.
a big dub against Michigan. But you know how it
Yeah,
goes. The Chiefs take a loss.
that kind of did really like drown my sorrows. As like, John Mateer is he's kind of the front runner for Heisman. All of a sudden now in Oklahoma football seems to be back because we got a lot to talk about with the Kansas City Chiefs, a lot to talk about week one. So let's get into it. Let's get into this game. We'll go to Drew first, and then we'll go over to Zach. Drew, what is your first initial thoughts? The Chiefs coming off the Super Bowl, they get their ass kicked, they go down to Brazil, a big game on YouTube, and then they just kind of fall short to the Chargers, just kind of sour for Chiefs fans. What's kind of your thoughts coming out of this game?
Well, I know the overreaction is going to be that the Chiefs have to tank or their Super Bowl windows closed, which I would not say is true whatsoever. You look at, when you got a guy like Patrick Mahomes on that roster, you're always in contention. I know we knew some people kind of talking this morning, kind of having a little mini Mahomes debate, and I brought up the point that the Chiefs have been in the Super Bowl 6 out of the last 8 years. So when you have a guy like Mahomes, he just always is going to give you a chance. So. I wouldn't say it's anything you have to really worry about or you're raising the panic button yet. So the example I've just been pointing to a lot recently is this time last year is everyone saying the Saints are a juggernaut offense. They're going to be the best offense ever, and they would go on to win like
Right.
5 games or whatever. So
Yeah.
it's still early in the season, so I wouldn't raise the panic alarm or anything like that. It's a division rival. Those games are always going to be close. So, I think when you kind of go into next week, I think you fix some things that clean up some things that you made some mistakes on, and just kind of move on to the next week.
Yeah, yeah. To me, and naturally, it is as we're gonna get Zach's thoughts here, is because it was just disappointing just seeing after you do kind of lose a Super Bowl, and it was kind of like revenge tour. This is a good Chargers team. Like I'm not going to say, but this is not a great offense. Where what we saw from Justin Herbert, in my opinion, probably Justin Herbert's best game. Like I've seen, maybe since that first game he came out with Chiefs' coming out party his rookie year. But this is an absolute just throwing darts for Justin Herbert as he absolutely burnt the Chiefs defense in this game. Zach, what is your just kind of initial thoughts? You've had some couple days to kind of just let it sink in and kind of just let it pass, but what is going on with the Chiefs in this first game?
Yeah, the defensive performance did not, inspire any confidence in me for the rest of the year. Of course, we still Ashton Jolly looked good. We're still yet to see
Yeah,
Omar Norman Lott, the second round pick out of Tennessee. Christian Fulton's not completely integrated into the defense since he was injured for most of training camp. And so there's definitely some just improvements that we can make over time. But this
mm-hmm.
defense talent-wise is not the same as it's been the last 3 years. I mean, 3 years ago when we won the Super Bowl, it was the youngest defense in the league. A bunch of young stars. We still had Snead, McDuffie was young. The next year was a dominant defense, and then last year, not as good yardage wise, but we made crucial stops when we had to. In
Right.
last game, it did not look like the same defense, unfortunately, because not only could we not get pressure, but guys were also wide open. It seemed like Keenan Allen and Ladd McConkey were wide open the entire game. Justin Herbert played a great game, but at the same time, 80% of his completions were to wide open guys. Okay. So he
Yeah.
did a great job finding him, but I mean, it wasn't difficult throws he was making. And so I need to see this draft. This draft class has to come in clutch for us. I'm not worried about the offense, honestly. Missing our top two guys. Mahomes looked insane in that second half. It's really just the defense, just like I've been pounding all offseason long.
Yeah. Like you said, I thought George did good. He had the sack in the game. Um, Chris Jones. I thought that at the end, and I was 100% with Drew Tranquil at the end of the game with just telling him, you have to do your job. I think if he just stays on the outside in that he's got to throw it away or he's got to try to scramble and you're right there for the tackle. You just are. And you got Mahomes getting the ball back with it was 2 minutes, 2:15, 2:30, whatever it was. And you got a chance to go win the game. But like you said, I'm not as if you can kind of get some of these guys, like obviously we'll talk about Worthy here in a second. I'll get you guys' perspective on that. But like the biggest concern should be the way the defense looked. It should be the way the defense looked. Like you can't go out there and like Keenan Allen, who was written off in Chicago, looked like Keenan Allen from a couple of years ago. And then a guy who like Chargers fans who have like literally called a bus and like Quentin Johnston, like looked like he was a like quality receiver. Like this isn't a again, this is a good Chargers team, but I did not think it would be an air raid this game. I thought they were going to do it through the ground. And Drew talked about it too. Like I thought there was going to be a Marion Hampton show, but this was just them just throwing dime and doing whatever he wanted to do. And I get you lose guys in your secondary this offseason. You lose veteran safeties, you lose veterans, but this was just really disappointing from the defense. And I get it. You lose Worthy. You don't have Rice. You don't really have Royals. So you're working with Hollywood Brown and Kelsey, really. So it was a struggle. It was a struggle. But that to me was one of the biggest things is a guy like Chris Jones, who I thought really I would think kind of had to just make some type of play in that game. And I think that was really just containing a quarterback. He didn't even really had to get a sack, and he could not do that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he felt like he had to do more than he really had to do because
Yeah.
we already given up multiple third and longs, and it was because we got no pressure. And so he kind of overextended a little bit. And, you know, Jones is not the guy you expect to make that mistake. But, I mean, Justin Herbert was on his P's and Q's, and he knew as soon as Jones went inside, it was like, okay, this is man coverage. The edge went inside. I can make a play on the ground. And so good play, but, unfortunate from Chris Jones for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of just looking at the box score here, Patrick Mahomes, 24 of 39, 258 yards, a touchdown, and then a rushing touchdown, 6 carries for 57 yards, average 9 yards a carry and a touchdown. Drew, what can the Chiefs do? Kind of, I'm getting a little ahead of myself in this Eagles game, but do the running backs really just have to take a step up? I know they only got 5 carries in this game because we were down a lot, but is this time where Pacheco and Kareem Hunt really have to step up with probably Xavier Worthy being out for a little bit and you're really limited on weapons?
Yeah, I think you have to because I'm not 100% sure what Pacheco's contract's looking like, but he's still fairly young in the league. But you're starting to see these running backs starting to get massive paydays. You look at like Christian McCaffrey, who got one with the Niners, and Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry with the Ravens. So if he wants to get paid, like to get that big second contract, whether that's with Kansas City or whether that's with another team, he's going to have to make those plays that shows like, hey, I can when Mahomes is having that bad game, you can lean on a run game to maybe, buy you a cheap win, if you're playing a team where Mahomes just isn't having it that day. But I'm kind of looking at the total stats, but the Chiefs were 5 of 14 on third down to the Chargers 7 of 13. I think that was really detrimental. And I think, I don't know the down and distance for that. I'd have to take a deeper look at that, but you'd have to assume like on those third and shorts, there's probably some plays where Pacheco should have stepped up and converted those nice third and short plays. You
Mm-hmm.
just drafted your left tackle and Josh Simmons and you have Creed Humphrey, you got Trey Smith, so you do have the O line that can get that push that you need to get those cheap down and dirty gritty yards that you need to extend those drives. And like I think on top of that too, like the penalties I think were a big killer too with 10
Yeah.
penalties were huge. I mean, like I'm just kind of basing it off of yesterday's game. You look at the Bears now, you thought like they were getting penalized so much in yesterday's game. I think they only had like 11 or 12, so they're getting penalized a lot in that game. So I think it's I like I said I wouldn't push the panic alarm on them yet. I think penalties can be a thing that just fluctuates week to week depending on the officiating crew you get. But I do think that Pacheco has to step up, especially if Worthy's missing multiple weeks at a time, and maybe Rasheed Rice. I know he's got the suspension too, so he has to
Mhm.
step up. Like somebody's going to have to step up, and whether that's Pacheco or maybe that's rookie or somebody's going to have to take that step up with Mahomes, in order if they do want to have a nice quick start to the season.
Yeah. And third down, the biggest thing is, like you said, the worst third down Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs have had in a regular season game. The only time they've ever had that is in the Super Bowl. They've had it worse. And mostly, like you said, it's because of penalties. And I'm going to let Zach kind of take it away with kind of the person that gets a lot of the penalties on this Chiefs offense.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk. Zach, carry it away, because I don't have the patience or the willpower to talk about
I don't want to
who.
think about this man. I don't want to. Hey, and Jaden, I've defended him more than most people because
Yeah,
of his
right.
above average pass protection. And I'm like, okay,
Yep.
Patrick Mahomes is our quarterback. That's what we need to worry about. But it's gotten to a point, bro. It's no longer a witch hunt with the officials. It's literally just him being a bonehead. All right. Jawan Taylor, 4 penalties in one game. I heard on the fan today that he has 36 penalties in the last 3 years, and that no other player has more than 30. So he has six more penalties than any other player in the entire NFL. And the one thing that you don't want on a team with Patrick Mahomes is penalties, because as long as you're not moving yourself back, you're going to end up making it down the field. Mahomes does not turn the ball over very much. And obviously,
Mm-mm.
he's able to extend plays. So even plays that should be negative plays end up being positive a lot of the time. So penalties are the only thing that Mahomes cannot control on the team. And it's ridiculous. I'm honestly just thinking towards the future. We can cut him this year, this offseason, or his contract may be over, but we're not gonna have to worry about his contract next year, no matter what. And that's 27 million. If you didn't know, Drew, Jawan Taylor is the second highest paid player on the Chiefs.
Yeah,
That,
I think
Yeah,
that's
no, Drew's gone over this before. Drew, I mean, I'm sure you'll break it down right here. This is, but real quick before Drew breaks that down, just Juwan Taylor. I have seen Travis Kelce. I've seen him kind of, get into it with Eric Bieniemy. I've seen him, he was getting into it with Andy Reid, the last Super Bowl one versus the 49ers. And I've seen him, kind of, like pump guys up and, get into a little bit with guys. I've never seen him shove and get into a player's face like that on the Kansas City Chiefs outside of like a fighting training camp.
yeah,
Like, I would do the same. Like, enough is enough. What you're saying, Juwan Taylor, is you are not good enough to, when the ball is snapped, to stop a guy in real time. You have to have a second, sometimes 2 seconds before the ball is snapped, because you are not good enough to stop that edge rusher. That is what you are saying. If you're saying that, they got to start doing something. Make him take a lap at practice. Take his favorite gummy bears or favorite Snickers bars away, whatever it is. I don't care. This is ridiculous that he can't just, when the ball is snapped, go with everyone else. Every now and then you'll see Trey Smith. Every now and then you'll see them, but not pre-snap. These are pre-snap, or not really the pre-snap. These, I guess, when the ball is snapped, I guess you can consider it pre-snap. This is just the one thing that is pissing me off, and it always happens to be on third down. Jawan Taylor, to me, I don't care if sometimes when he does that, they pull him out for a play. I'm not kidding. Something's got
hey,
to be done.
listen, that left tackle that we got from the 49ers in the offseason, I want to see
Jalen
him.
Moore.
Jalen Moore needs the last game. I'm not saying start him week 2 because we're gonna
No,
give Jawan a chance. After those 4 penalties, he shouldn't have played another snap. He
no.
was a liability that game. He obviously didn't have it that game. And Jalen Moore, what's the point of signing a tackle for nearly $20 million a year
Dollars to be a
if he's going
backup.
to play behind a rookie and the most penalty-prone player in the entire league? Veach honestly has not been on his P's and Q's the last 2 years. And I'm not afraid to admit it because I mean we've been winning championships, but let's be real.
Free agency wise, 100%. Draft
Yeah.
wise, he's done all right. He hits at least one guy that can go out there and make a play. But free agency wise, yes, and that's hard. I'm gonna cut him some slack. That's hard. This season he kind of kept the in-house guys, but the July, I literally yesterday I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, wait, we have Jalen Moore. Next time he gets a penalty, go get him. Go get him. Like it's basketball. Like you literally have to do a basketball substitution with Jawan Taylor now. I'm absolutely done. It's absolutely infuriating. I'm sorry, Drew. Take it away. I know we've kind of talked before about Jawan Taylor and some of the contract stuff and what the Chiefs kind of can do with that.
Yeah, I we kind of broke it down like going into the offseason of what can the Chiefs really do with Jawan Taylor. And I think the question was kind of looking at it was you could post June 1 him and then just kind of eat more money next year, but it's just one of those weird scenarios where you just really can't be in. It's like 'cause then you basically have a wash for this year, but then you got to pay him more next year just to get rid of the guy. And I think it's one of those things where it's just like, okay, we just need to survive one more season. Can we get one more season out of him? Because you've won two Super Bowls with Jawan Taylor at right tackle, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
One.
So, I mean,
One?
Wiley was the right tackle against the Eagles, I think. Right?
okay.
Yeah.
So, like, but
Yes. Yes. You're right. Yes.
yeah, so like at the very least, you've got a championship. So you've proven that, okay, we can at least win a Super Bowl with this guy at right tackle, even how much of a liability he is. So we can at least have one more year and just really save the cap because, Mahomes, that contract's really going to start kicking in where it's at the 70s and you're really, really riding that contract out.
Oh,
And then Chris Jones' big payday. And like I said, it's an unfortunate situation. I think you just kind of, when you had Ryan Poles as your assistant GM, kind of having the ear of Brett Veach, it's just throw the money at the problem, and it just didn't work out at the end of the day. But it's just really unfortunate situation to
I
be in, and
so
just
you're a contract guy. Okay. I was trying to tell you about Javon Taylor's contract. You knew all about it already.
oh yeah, like it's a whole situation. Yeah, so. Like I said, it looks like after next year, you're able to, like, I just kind of broke it down on the side here, but it looks like if you were to just hold on to him for one more year, you save about $20 million, which helps you guys out, with maybe re-signing a free agent or maybe keeping a guy, maybe tagging him, depending on what situation you
Yeah.
guys are really looking at. So, it's an unfortunate situation. It's like you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, really.
But guys, let's get in before we kind of wrap it up here is week one and then going into week two. Drew, what are some of your takeaways from week one? And then what are some of your overreactions from week one?
Uh, I think the biggest takeaway, I'm kind of going to be looking at is I'm really kind of interested to see what the Steelers are going to do with Aaron Rodgers. Are we kind of getting a lot of people are, in the offseason we're kind of memeing and joking around like, oh, is Aaron Rodgers going to go to the Vikings and recapitulate, what he did with Favre
Mhm.
and try to, Favre 2.0 sort of thing. But people, don't forget, like he had that really good season in 09. Probably it was his best season in his career was with that Vikings team that first year. So it would be really interesting if he turns back the clock for one more season and he has, answers the Steelers fans' prayers of just finding a capable quarterback that can, maybe qualify, kind of give him that little challenge in the AFC North, with the Ravens and maybe not win the division. I don't know. That could be a little interesting, but just somebody that could be like a legit threat. It just seems like the Bengals have really fallen off, especially defensively. They're one of the worst defenses in the league. It's just very, very Jekyll and Hyde. You got one of the best offenses and the worst defenses. So, and then you got, the Browns really aren't much of a competition. So, I mean, it kind of opens the door for you to have that second place finish, to maybe compete for a division title. So,
Mhm.
I think that would be kind of the one thing to kind of look out for this next year. But I do think like the biggest overreaction. Uh, some of the biggest overreactions I'd probably go with. I think as of right now, I would just say like, maybe the Ravens are just overrated, or maybe they just choke, and maybe Lamar can't do it against the other teams. Like he's like that third quarterback, just can't, kind of like how Josh Allen is with the Chiefs. Like, oh, he can't climb the Mahomes mountain. Well, maybe Lamar really can't climb the Josh Allen mountain because most of the time it's Josh Allen and Mahomes meeting in the postseason, or Josh Allen gets the
Mhm.
best of Lamar in the regular season, or Mahomes gets the best of Allen and then Lamar in the regular season as well. So I think that could be a little bit overreaction right now. I think another one could also potentially be the Daniel Jones thing right now. I mean, the whole Kevin O'Connell quarterback whisper thing could be great. Just kind of taper expectations just a little bit, let them kind of get settled in a little bit, see where you're going with it because you know, you go back to last year when the whole Sam Darnold thing was going on. No one was really giving Sam Darnold his flowers and whatnot after beating the Giants and having a really good game against them. It really wasn't until probably they were like what 4-0 ish, give or take, before you really started to see like, okay, Sam Darnold there might be something there in Minnesota. So maybe that's kind of like I would say your biggest overreaction going outside of week one or into the future.
Okay. Zach, what was
Yeah.
some of your takeaways from week one? And then if you have an overreaction.
I'm gonna start with the overreaction. The Lions
All
are not
right.
making the playoffs. They're not making the playoffs. And I actually believe this. I call it overreaction. I actually believe that. The
That's
Vikings
not an
have,
overreaction.
well, it
Yeah.
is to everyone else. It's not to me.
Well,
So
I
I'm gonna
unfortunately I
say,
can't say that because I'm a
We'll
Vikings
get to
fan.
that. We'll let you continue, but me and Drew will get to about our Lions prediction. But continue.
I mean,
But
I don't think they're
that's just
better
a
than the Vikings
prediction.
or the Packers. And I
No.
mean, the Packers showed that the Packers dominated them, okay? The Packers defense was trending towards elite without Micah Parsons last year, despite their secondary, which is, shaky.
Yeah.
Not much talent. I know they lost like Eric Stokes. But with Micah Parsons, this Packers defense is going to be insane. Okay. Plus, having the cold weather later in the season outdoors, having Lambeau home field advantage, and then Jordan Love maybe finally has a number one. I mean, Golden didn't show much on Sunday, but
Yeah.
Golden was first round draft pick. The Packers rarely do that. And
Realistically.
really, they haven't had a number one guy. Jaden Reed is not a number one guy. Wicks has bricks as hands. Christian Watson is in the hospital as we speak. And so I just think that the ceiling for the Packers is insane. I really think it is. And then the Vikings, Drew, your Vikings, they showed a lot of character yesterday being down, and it was kind of because Caleb Williams was uncharacteristically accurate at the beginning of the game, and obviously McCarthy his first ever start. But the way y'all looked in that third and fourth quarter, it was like there was two completely separate leagues of teams. And I was high on the Vikings. I have a Vikings Super Bowl
Yeah.
future bet that I put in last week with my profit boost. I'm just high on the Vikings because I saw what Kevin O'Connell did with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is a bum. I'm telling y'all. Sam Darnold is a bum. I don't care what he does in the future. I don't care he is a bum. And the fact that Kevin O'Connell made that dude throw for like 4,000 something yards, he's got to be studied. Kevin O'Connell has to be studied. So I'm gonna say the Lions don't make the playoffs. Takeaways in the AFC wise, it could be a real case that the Ravens, Bills, and Chiefs, none of them have a good defense. That could really be the case. The
Yeah.
Ravens defense was expected to be elite because of how it performed at the end of last year, but they really
Yeah, they were bad.
don't have many names in their front seven. They have Roquan Smith. They have some young guys, and then they have the interior guy. I forgot his name. He was good a few years ago. And their secondary shaky. They had a lot of faith in Jair Alexander coming into the year with him. The question with him has always been, is he healthy? He didn't look good the other day. Nate Wiggins is still, for the most part, unproven. He's only a second year player, and obviously Kyle Hamilton's elite. But that defense seriously could not be that good because they weren't that good at the beginning of last year at all. The Bills defense is kind of void of talent at this point. Milano's getting older. Ed Oliver had a monster game, but then their edge rushers are just middle of the road. Gregory Rousseau, uh, they're relying on Tre'Davious White once he comes back. And then the Chiefs defense also is kind of in the same position as the Bills, where it's like their good guys are getting older and their young guys haven't really shown to be that quality of players yet. And so, if that's the case, we could see a way different AFC than we have in past years. Not necessarily different teams, but just different styles of play. Like we'll see Ravens Buffalo hit 40 in the playoffs just like it did in the regular season. We'll see the Chiefs giving up 30 in the playoffs again, unlike they have in the last couple of years, other than the game
Yeah.
we don't speak about. And so I just think AFC could be in for a shakeup this year.
Yeah. No, I all of those I hit on. I mean, we'll move back over to the Lions. There is I initially had the Minnesota Vikings winning that division, and then a lot of people are like, "How can you have the Vikings win the division when the Lions have kind of won that division?" Other reasons you've had for other teams winning the division because they've consistently won it. They won it last year. I'm like, okay, I respect that, but it wasn't a confident pick having to like put the Lions back in there because me and Drew touched on it all off season. You lose your coordinators. Your offensive line is not going to be that strong. And I just really don't trust their defense. I didn't really trust it last year. And then they got injuries, and then I really didn't trust it. Is it really, like you said, it was kind of your overreaction, but is it fair to say it's not an overreaction for to say, I don't think this team, the way the NFC is structured, that this team could miss the playoffs?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think things get kind of interesting there. Like you said, like, we kind of talked about it all off season and whatnot. Frank Ragnow just kind of retires out of nowhere, really. Just kind of like a Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson, see ya after, they turn 30. Just seems something that the Lions do all too well. 30-year-old players that are all pro caliber there. But you move Graham Glasgow from guard to center, who is by far the weakest link on that O line for years. And then you go and you get Christian Mahogany. He had one good playoff game. And he's a late round pick. I think he's a 6th round pick. So, he was kind of projected to be like that third, fourth range. Just I think he had some medical issues that made him fall. And then you got Tate Ratledge, who I like Tate Ratledge, but he's a rookie as well. So, and I think a late second at that. So there's just a lot of turnover there. And like you said, you mentioned the injuries too. And I know I brought this up the other day. They're missing Malcolm Rodriguez and they're missing Aleem McNeil, which are really key in that front seven there, and they're missing him until Thanksgiving, which would be like week 12 by then. Then you're missing Levi
Right.
on Onwuzurike for the entirety of the season. Terrion Arnold just can't stop grabbing people out of the X and Z positions there, and it's like Sauce Gardner even worse. But and you got DJ Reed as well. They had a big signing there, but when you have the division like that, when you got a Justin Jefferson, you got a Jordan Addison, and the Bears, they added, they got DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. Everyone's been talking about this big breakout season, and you draft a Luther Burden, and you get Colston Loveland there as well. So it's just so packed with position players there. It could be possible, especially with that schedule. I know we broke it down. Like they have the hardest schedule in the league. And you look,
In
they
the
play
league,
like
yeah.
the Ravens, they play the Eagles, they play the Vikings twice, they play the Packers twice. I mean, like just
Chiefs.
and the
Chiefs.
Chiefs, yeah. So they play the Chiefs as well. So
Yeah.
and I believe
That
that
Arrowhead.
it's at Arrowhead. Oh, yeah, so it's at
Yeah.
Arrowhead for that. So I mean, those games alone, that's like what half their schedule already. And I know they
Yeah.
just beat Green Bay last week, but I mean, things are going to get tough there. I mean, and if they can't, like, I was expecting a slow start because you're getting a new scheme, everyone's settling in, and that's I think what you kind of saw in Chicago yesterday on Monday Night Football with these new coaches. Like, only Liam Cohen was the only rookie coach to win a game last week for week one. So I think it's just a common thread with the whole league as itself, and with the line, I think it could happen. I mean, it's not unheard of. I mean, when you look at Seattle, they have a really easy schedule. They get the double dip of the NFC South and the AFC South, and maybe even the Cardinals. I mean,
Yeah.
they get this just because they're not as talented as the Lions. It's all about who you play on your schedule, and their schedule is significantly easier than of the Detroit Lions, and that could be one that could bite them in the butt in the end.
Yeah, I mean, just for the Lions, like you said, their schedule, just for some of the tougher teams they play. So they got to play the Ravens, the Bengals, the Bucks, the Commanders. They got to play the Steelers. They got to play the Vikings. They got to play the Rams. Of course, they got to play the Packers against Lions, Chiefs. I mean, then the rest of the schedule is just Bears, Browns, Giants, Cowboys. That's it, and the Bears again. I mean, that is a gauntlet of a schedule.
Yeah, and
It
like I'm
got
gonna
it's just like the Eagles. That's the Eagles. They're them and the Eagles have the two toughest schedules in the NFL, and then you got the Giants. I mean, they play nine teams for that made the playoffs last year. The next closest team is the Eagles, who play 12 playoff teams from last year. I mean,
And
that is
we didn't even mention the fact they lost both their coordinators. We didn't even have to mention
yeah,
that. But
yeah.
Ben Johnson being gone could be detriment on top of obviously the changes with the O line. Aaron Glenn somehow was able to make, even after they lost all their impact players, they were still an average defense last year. It
yeah.
could get it could get really spooky for Detroit fans. And I kind of feel bad for them because I'm sure they thought they were getting a Super Bowl out of that squad that they had last year and 2 years ago because I mean the talent was off the chart. The talent was Eagles level, Ravens level. But when you have Jared Goff as your quarterback, I mean some stuff it just isn't meant to be. So
Yeah, and
Yeah, it's good. No, no, go ahead, Drew.
oh no, sorry. I was just gonna say too. I know you mentioned the Cowboys too, and as much as the Cowboy haters of the world they have, but if Dak Prescott can go back to his MVP caliber form from a couple years ago and CeeDee Lamb, You get an
Yeah.
offensive shootout, those games are crapshoots. You look at the Bengals last year, like every game was a crapshoot, and that's why they went 9-8. So I think that
Yeah.
could even be an interesting one too.
Yeah, they're the Cowboys are a frisk team this
Yeah.
year. I heard them talking about that on Wake Up Barstool this morning. A good old frisk team. They're that team that's like they're not going to make the playoffs, but like you're going to play them, and you're like, oh, I need the 1 seed, and then they beat you, and you're like, I hate that team because they're not good and they're not bad, but they're just like that frisk team that just like upsets your season or something. And I think that's what the Cowboys are going to kind of be this season. And I think the Lions are kind of be like a frisk team, kind of make the playoffs, kind of. I mean, I think they could maybe be a team that wins 10 games, but still doesn't make the playoffs because, like we just said, that schedule. But let's wrap it up here and we'll just kind of go in. What are 3 games in week 2 you guys are looking forward to? If you guys have the schedule right there in front of you, 3 games where you're saying, I'm going to be watching that right there on my TV. I may have Red Zone on, but I'm going to have those games on there with my snack of choice. And I'm going to be watching those 3 games. What are the 3 games? And what are the 3 things you're looking forward to in week 2?
Uh,
Drew, if you want to go.
yeah, I go. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I'll go kind of chalk here. I'm gonna go all the primetime games with Thursday Night
Yeah.
Football. You got Washington and Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
That's gonna be a potential, NFC seeding playoff scenario kind of, game that could be a tiebreaker game. And we kind of saw it last year. They were like 6-7. They were, don't, kids are gonna go 6-7, but but six.
How
I
to fit
accidentally said
that
that
in
today
there.
too, and I had to let
How
people
to
know. I was
fit
like, I did
that
not
in
mean to do
there.
that.
Like a 6-7 seed matchup, and the Bears, like you said, like a frisk team that just kind of spoiled their season, and it's I just can't go over that. But yeah, like they could be like that frisk team there, and get that rematch of a 6-7 matchup there from the previous season, and then. Go to Sunday Night Football. You got the rematch of the national championship game from J.J. McCarthy and Michael
Oh
Penix,
yeah.
which you know, say what you want about last year's NFC title game. I just feel like there's just been like the missing like that quality. Like I don't know, like when you look back just like the last couple years, like Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence just going at it. You had like Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, or Mac Jones in that Alabama offense in 2020 against that Justin Fields Ohio State. Like it just feels like we weren't really getting that like top dog alpha matchup for a national championship game. And I think this was like the last year we got it. We had Michael Penix with Washington just blow through that Pac-12, which the Pac-12 was by far the best conference that year
Yeah.
in college football. And then you go to, obviously Michigan, and they were just knocking down these top 10 teams, just boom, and just mowing them down. And, just having that pedigree, that championship pedigree, which really ended up being the deciding factor for him to win that national championship. And then, going to Monday Night Football, and I'll steal yours, and the Chiefs and the Eagles, the rematch of the Super Bowl has definitely got to be one that you're watching as well. So.
Drew, week 2, what do you got? Or
So
I'm sorry, not Drew. I'm sorry, Zach. What do you got
Oh,
week
okay, for
2?
sure.
yeah,
I was like, hey, you okay?
Yeah.
Out of all the
Back to
games, I
Zach.
mean, obviously, like the elite matchups have already been talked about. I'm thinking
Mm-hmm.
Jaguars Bengals will be a good game because
Okay. I like it.
you know neither defense is good. At least we don't think the Jaguars defense is still good. They had the fortune of playing the Panthers week 1.
Yeah.
And then last year the Jaguars offense was bad, but this year they have Travis Hunter. They Brian Thomas is in year 2. Trevor Lawrence is healthy. I just think that game could be a serious shootout, and I would love to see the Bengals take an L to the Jaguars. I have Brian Thomas on every single fantasy team that I own, 5, and so I'm going to be watching the Jags, very closely this year. That just sounds like an interesting game to watch. It's probably what I'll have on in the noon slate. And then as far as the other games, um, honestly, outside of obviously Eagles Chiefs, I'm not really too interested in any of these games in particular. I always watch the Steelers just because they have a style of football that's pretty there's a clear difference between Steelers football and everyone else's football. It seems every year it's just like hard nosed defense. Offense is horrible, but they somehow are able to get points in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So Seahawks Steelers is a decent matchup. Other than that, it's just Chiefs Eagles, baby. I'm gonna be hyper focused on that game.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of me too. I'm gonna flip it around on NFL ticket. I'll watch, see how the Broncos did, and like you said, did not look good. I think after, as I kind of put this in real quick, after watching the Chiefs lose and then watching all the games on Sunday, I'm like, okay, we're going to be okay. Like everyone else kind of had their own problems some way or another, even if they won the game. I'm like, okay, Bills defense didn't look good. Broncos didn't look good. Raiders, and then like every other team just kind of was like, okay. I mean, I guess the Steelers, the Colts were the only team that you could say went out there and just absolutely looked like a dog, even though they were playing the Dolphins. But yeah, I'm intrigued in that Bengals on flip around. Like I said, Colts, Broncos, and then Eagles, Chiefs. I'm going to be fired up, ready to go. We'll be live. I'll be live streaming that one on TikTok. Before we get out of here, Drew, tell people where people can reach you, because you do have a great Vikings NFL podcast with one of our other guys that comes on the podcast, Dustin Klug. Where can people find you guys?
Yeah, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. So if you want to, I'm more of a YouTube guy myself when it comes to podcasts, just because I like that face-to-face interaction, like watching it. So I prefer YouTube, but you can also check if you're driving in the car, can't have the screen up. You can go on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. That's 612 Vikings. We just actually recently just released an episode as well, kind of breaking down the Monday Night Football game, which a lot of Viking fans are on cloud nine for, which usually means heartbreak at the end. But we're all excited. We're definitely excited for the 2023-2024 national championship rematch against the Falcons, and I think hits a little bit home for us in our certain fantasy league group with people talking smack and stuff. So we're definitely excited
Yeah,
for that.
yeah.
People are talking their talk, and both teams think they're going to win, and one will be on, like I said, one will be on cloud nine, one will be taking the L and talking smack for a whole week and rubbing it in, potentially for a whole year, depending on how things go in our group.
Yeah, it should be interesting. All of us here on this screen are in a fantasy league, and it's been very interesting. Just some of the team dynamics, and obviously me and Zach are kind of the lone wolf chief guys in there. But yeah, it should be interesting. It should be interesting this Sunday. Good luck to all your teams out there, and good luck to the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Me and Zach will be here later in the week to break down that game and what could happen in that game in Kansas City. We will see you guys next time on the TBT podcast.
Recording stop.